My daughter mocked my cheap clothes, not knowing I owned the company she worked for. The lobby of the Sterling Tower was a cathedral of glass and steel, smelling faintly of expensive espresso and ambition. I stood near the revolving doors, clutching the handle of my worn leather handbag, the one I'd bought at a thrift store 10 years ago. It was comfortable, reliable, and soft, much like the faded gray cardigan I wore over my floral blouse. I had come to surprise my daughter, Chloe, for lunch. It was her 32nd birthday, and I had baked her favorite lemon bars, wrapped neatly in tinfoil, inside my bag. I imagined her smile. I imagined us sitting on a bench outside, watching the city go by, just like we used to when she was a little girl. But as the elevator doors pinged open and a stream of young professionals poured out, the air shifted. I saw her immediately. Chloe looked stunning in a tailored navy suit, her hair sleek and sharp, laughing at something a tall man next to her was saying. She looked powerful. She looked successful. My heart swelled with pride. I took a step forward, raising my hand.
Chloe!
Happy birth, the words died in my throat. She froze mid-step. Her eyes landed on me, and for a split second, I saw recognition, but it wasn't followed by warmth. It was followed by panic. Her gaze darted to my scuffed shoes, then to my cardigan, and finally to the old bag I was holding. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She rushed toward me, closing the distance not to embrace me, but to intercept me. "Mom," she hissed, her voice a sharp whisper that cut through the lobby's hum. "What are you doing here?" I brought you lemon bars," I stammered, feeling suddenly very small in this cavernous room. "For your birthday." Chloe looked around nervously to see if her colleagues were watching. They were standing by the elevators, watching the interaction with curious, amused smirks. "Mom, look at you," she snapped, her voice low and venomous. "Why did you come here dressed like that? This is a corporate headquarters, not a flea market. People can see you." The sting of her words was physical, like a slap to the cheek. "I just wanted to surprise you, honey." "Well, you have," she muttered, turning her back slightly to shield me from her friend's view. "You've surprised me by humiliating me. You look embarrassing, you look poor, you look outdated. Just leave, Mom. Please. Before my boss sees you." She turned back to her colleagues, forcing a bright, fake laugh. "Just a delivery mix-up. Someone lost their way," she called out to them. I stood there, frozen. A delivery mix-up. That's what I was to her. Not the mother who had nursed her through fevers, not the woman who had taught her to read, but a delivery mix-up to be dismissed. I gripped my bag tighter, feeling the warmth of the lemon bars through the leather. "I love you, Chloe," I whispered to her back. She didn't turn around. She just waved her hand dismissively, shooing me away like a stray dog. I turned and walked back through the revolving doors, out into the cold city air. I didn't cry, not yet. But as the glass doors spun behind me, sealing her in her tower of success and leaving me on the concrete sidewalk, I realized something profound. My daughter didn't just think I was poor. She thought I was a burden. And in that moment of sharp, crystalline clarity, I knew that everything I had hidden for the last 20 years had to remain hidden, at least for a little while longer. To understand why I stood there and took that disrespect, you have to understand the life I built with my husband, Silas. Silas was a man of few words but immense vision. We both grew up with nothing, dirt floors, me-down clothes, and the kind of hunger that stays in your belly long after you've eaten. When we met, we made a promise to each other we would build a life of substance, not show. Silas was brilliant with numbers, an engineer with a mind for logistics that no one saw coming. We started a small shipping logistics company in our garage. For the first 5 years, we ate rice and beans. We patched our own clothes. We put every single penny back into the business, and it grew. Oh, how it grew. But Silas had a fear. He had seen what money did to people in our hometown. He saw how it turned neighbors into enemies and children into entitled monsters. "Grace," he told me one night, his hands calloused and warm in mine, "if we ever make it big, we keep it quiet. We live in this house. We drive our old cars. We teach our children the value of work, not the value of a trust fund." So, that's what we did. By the time Chloe was in high school, our little logistics company had evolved. We had quietly acquired controlling interests in several major tech startups, commercial real estate holdings, and eventually, we became the silent majority shareholders of a massive conglomerate called Omnicorp. Omnicorp, the very same company where Chloe now worked as a mid-level marketing director. When Silas passed away 5 years ago, I inherited it all. The portfolios, the deeds, the voting rights. I was, on paper, one of the wealthiest women in the state. But I honored Silas's last request. Never boast, he had whispered to me in his final days. Never reveal. Let character show people's true worth. If they love you for your money, they don't love you. So, I continued to live in our 3-bedroom bungalow in the old neighborhood. I drove the 10-year-old sedan Silas had loved. I shopped with coupons because I hated waste. I wore my comfortable cardigans because they felt like hugs. Chloe never knew. She knew her father had a small business that did okay, but she assumed it died with him. She assumed the life insurance was just enough to keep me afloat. She never asked deep questions, and I never volunteered the answers. I wanted her to build her own way. I wanted her to have the pride of earning her success, just as we had. But looking back at the glass tower of Omnicorp, knowing I owned the very building she was trying to banish me from, I wondered if I had made a terrible mistake. I had tried to protect her from the corruption of wealth. But somewhere along the way, she had been corrupted anyway, not by having money, but by the desperate, clawing desire to appear as if she did. The incident in the lobby wasn't the beginning. It was simply the climax of a long, slow erosion. The signs had been there for years, small red flags flapping in the wind that I had chosen to ignore because a mother's love is often blind. After Silas died, Chloe's visits became less frequent. When she did come over, the air in the house would change. She brought a nervous, frantic energy, checking her watch, tapping her foot, and sighing loudly if I moved too slowly. It started with the corrections. "Mom, don't say ain't, it makes you sound uneducated," she would say, cutting me off in the middle of a story about her father. "Mom, nobody uses cash anymore. You're holding up the line," she would snap at the grocery store, rolling her eyes at the cashier as if to apologize for my existence. She began to treat me like a child who needed supervision, but not the kind that comes from care, the kind that comes from annoyance. "Did you pay the electric bill?" she would ask, scanning my kitchen counter with suspicion. "Do you even understand how to use the online portal? I don't want to have to bail you out if they cut the lights." Bail me out. The irony was so thick I could almost taste it. I had just approved a $2 million charitable grant that morning from my home office, yet she thought I couldn't manage a $100 electric bill. But the worst part was the social exclusion. I remember asking her once if I could meet her new boyfriend, a man she had been seeing for 6 months. "Oh, Mom, I don't think that's a good idea right now," she had said, avoiding my gaze. "He's from a very different background. His parents are doctors. It might be awkward for you. You wouldn't know what to talk about." She was ashamed of me. She saw my simple life, my garden, my books, and my quiet ways as a deficit. She thought I was small. "I can hold a conversation, Chloe," I had said gently. "It's not just that," she said, her voice tight. "It's the whole vibe. This house, your clothes. It just screams struggle, Mom, and I'm trying to project success. You have to understand. Project success." That was her religion. Publicly, she treated me like a fragile relic. She would loudly ask, "Do you have enough money for lunch?" When we were around others, performing the role of the benevolent, successful daughter taking care of her poor, aging mother. Privately, she treated me like an obstacle. I began to notice how often she asked about the house. "What's going to happen to this place when, she would ask. Or, "Do you really need 3 bedrooms? It seems wasteful." Her tone was never one of concern for my comfort. It was a calculation. She was mentally appraising my assets, wondering how much longer she would have to wait to liquidate them. I saw it all. I felt every slight, but I stayed silent, hoping it was just a phase. Hoping the grief of losing her father had just made her hard. I didn't realize that the hardness was permanent. If the lobby incident was the spark, the company's open house was the fire. A month after the Lemon Bar disaster, I received a generic email invitation to the Omnicorp annual charity gala and open house. It was sent to all shareholders, even the silent ones. Chloe obviously didn't know I was on that list. She hadn't invited me personally. I debated not going. But a part of me, a stubborn, hopeful part, wanted to see her in her element. I wanted to be proud of her work. I convinced myself that maybe, just maybe, if I saw her succeeding, I would understand her stress better. I dressed carefully. I didn't wear designer clothes. I wouldn't break my vow. But I wore my best Sunday dress, a navy blue sheath with a pearl necklace Silas had given me for our 30th anniversary. It was elegant, understated, and dignified. I took a taxi to the event center. The room was glittering with chandeliers and filled with people holding champagne flutes. I spotted Chloe across the room. She was holding court with a group of executives, laughing, her head thrown back. She looked radiant. I approached slowly, waiting for a lull in the conversation. When she turned and saw me, the smile didn't just drop from her face, it vanished as if it had never existed. Her face went pale, then blotchy red. She excused herself abruptly from the group and marched over to me, grabbing my elbow with a grip that was painful. She steered me into a corner, behind a large potted fern. "What are you doing here?" she hissed. Her breath smelled of expensive wine. "I received an invitation," I said calmly. "I wanted to see your work." "Chloe, you couldn't have received an invitation. This is for investors and VAPs, she spat. "You must have crashed it. God, Mom, are you senile? Do you have any idea how bad this looks?" "I am not senile, Chloe. I am your mother." "You are embarrassing me!" She raised her voice, and I saw heads turn nearby. "Look at you. That dress is from, 1990? You stick out like a sore thumb. Everyone here is someone important. You are." She stopped, searching for the word that would hurt the most. "You are a nobody, Mom. You are just a housewife who doesn't know her place." The room seemed to go silent. I felt the heat rise in my neck. A waiter passing by slowed down, glancing at us with pity. "Please tell me you didn't come here to ask for money." Chloe continued, her voice dripping with disgust. "Because I am not giving you a dime until you agree to sell that house." "I didn't come for money," I whispered, my voice trembling despite my best efforts. "I came because I thought you might want me here." "Well, I don't," she said. "Go home, take a bus. Just get out of here before my VP sees I'm related to the help." Related to the help. Something inside me cracked. It wasn't a loud crack. It was the quiet, terrifying sound of a mother's unconditional tolerance finally reaching its limit. I pulled my arm from her grip. I looked her in the eye. For the first time, I didn't look at her with softness. I looked at her with assessment. "I will leave," I said quietly. "But you should be careful, Chloe. You never know who is watching." She rolled her eyes. "Nobody is watching you, Mom. You're invisible." I walked away. I walked past the executives. I walked past the CEO, whom I knew personally but ignored for the sake of the secret. I walked out into the night, and I didn't look back. After that night, the pretense dropped. Chloe stopped pretending to care about my well-being and focused entirely on my assets. She visited 2 weeks later, not with lemon bars or an apology, but with a stack of real estate brochures. "Mom, we need to be realistic," she said, sitting at my kitchen table without taking off her coat. "This house is rotting. It's too big for you. The market is hot right now. If you sell, you could move into a small apartment. Something cheaper." "I like this house," I said, pouring tea she wouldn't drink. "Your father built those shelves. I planted those roses." "Sentimental value doesn't pay the bills," she snapped. "And speaking of bills, I know you're struggling. I see how you live. It's pathetic, honestly. If you sell the house, you can give me the equity to invest for you. I'm the only successful one in this family. I know how to handle money. You'll just ruin it." She started walking around the room, picking things up and putting them down. "We should sell this china cabinet, too. It's ugly, but some hipster might pay for it." "That was your grandmother's," I said. "It's clutter," she corrected. "And when you're gone, I'm just going to have to pay someone to haul it all away. Why not do it now and save me the trouble?" She spoke of my death as if it were a calendar appointment she was anxious to keep. "You seem very interested in my finances lately, Chloe," I observed, sitting down. "Someone has to be! You're obviously incompetent!" she yelled, her frustration boiling over. "I'm trying to secure my future." "I deserve it, Mom. I work 60 hours a week. I shouldn't have to wait until you die to get what's coming to me." There it was, the naked truth. She believed she was entitled to the fruits of my labor simply because she existed. She didn't see me as a person. She saw me as a slow-release ATM that was malfunctioning. "And stop buying that generic brand of coffee," she sneered, looking at the counter. "It tastes like dirt. If you let me handle your accounts, I wouldn't let you embarrass yourself like this." I looked at the coffee. It was the brand Silas had loved. "I'll think about what you said," I lied. "Don't think," she said, grabbing her purse. "Just listen to me. I know better than you." I decided to test the depth of her character. I needed to know if there was any redemption left, any scrap of the little girl I had raised. So I became exactly what she said I was. I started wearing my oldest, most tattered cardigan every time she visited. I stopped dyeing my hair, letting the gray roots show. I deliberately moved more slowly, feigning confusion over simple things. "Chloe, dear," I would ask, my voice trembling, "I can't find my checkbook. Did I pay the water bill?" I watched her reaction closely. A loving daughter would have been concerned. A loving daughter would have helped search. Chloe just sighed, a long, dramatic exhale of annoyance. "Oh my God, Mom. You are losing it." Seriously, she didn't help me look. She just pulled out her phone and texted someone, ignoring my distress. I let her lecture me. I nodded humbly when she explained basic economics to me as if I were a toddler. "You see, Mom, inflation means your money is worth less. That's why you need to liquidate the house now," she explained slowly, speaking loudly. "Oh, I see," I said, widening my eyes. "You are so smart, Chloe. I don't know what I'd do without you," she preened. She soaked up the flattery like a sponge. "Exactly, I basically take care of you. You wouldn't survive without me." She bragged to her coworkers on the phone while standing in my kitchen. "Yeah, I'm at my mom's. Gotta make sure she hasn't burned the place down. She's totally helpless. It's exhausting being the only adult in the family." I stood at the sink, washing dishes, my back to her. I wasn't helpless. I was memorizing. I was cataloging every insult, every sigh, every moment of arrogance. She had no idea that the poor old woman she was mocking had just closed a deal to acquire a logistics hub in Singapore that morning. She had no idea she was standing in the kitchen of her boss's boss's boss. She thought she was playing me. But I was the one holding the cards. The final straw came on a rainy Tuesday. I had gone to Chloe's apartment to drop off some mail that had come to the house. I had a key, one she had given me years ago for emergencies and likely forgot about. I let myself in, calling her name. Silence. Then I heard voices from the bedroom. She was on speakerphone. I froze in the hallway, clutching the envelopes. "I'm telling you, Mark, it's almost done." Chloe's voice drifted out. "I've got the papers drawn up. Power of attorney. She's practically senile anyway. Once I get her to sign, I can declare her incompetent." My heart stopped beating. The air left my lungs. A man's voice, Mark, a coworker I recognized from the open house, laughed on the other end. "And then what?" "You put her in a home. There's a state facility in Jersey. It's cheap," Chloe said casually. "It smells like bleach and cabbage, but she won't know the difference. The important thing is getting the house sold. The equity is enough to cover my credit card debt and put a down payment on that loft downtown." "You're ruthless, babe?" Mark laughed. "I'm practical," she replied. "She's just taking up space. She's too simple to understand legal stuff anyway. I'll tell her it's for her own safety. She trusts me. She's an idiot." I backed away. My legs felt like jelly. I silently opened the front door and slipped out into the hallway, closing it with a soft click. I leaned against the wall in the corridor, gasping for air. It wasn't just greed. It was erased. She was planning to lock me away. She was planning to steal my freedom, my home, and my dignity. Also, she could buy a loft downtown. She was willing to discard me like trash. The sorrow that had weighed on me for months evaporated. In its place, a cold, hard resolve formed. The mother in me wanted to weep, but the CEO in me, the woman Silas had trusted with an empire, knew exactly what had to be done. I drove home in silence. The rain battered the windshield, but my mind was clear. When I got home, I walked straight to the master bedroom. At the foot of the bed sat Silas's old cedar chest. I hadn't opened it in years. I lifted the heavy lid. The smell of cedar and Silas's cologne wafted up, giving me strength. Inside, beneath the quilts, was a fireproof lockbox. I dialed the combination. Left, right, left. I pulled out the files. The deed of trust, the majority shareholder's certificates for Omnicorp, the untouched bank statements, and finally, the business card of Mr. Abernathy, our family attorney and the only man who knew the full extent of the truth. I sat on the floor, surrounded by the paper trail of an empire, and I picked up the phone. "Mistrone, Abernathy," I said when he answered. "Grace, is everything all right?" His voice was warm, steady. "No, Arthur, it isn't. But it's about to be." I told him everything. I told him about the lobby, the insults. "The plan is to put me in a state home." There was a long silence on the line. "That is unforgivable," Abernathy said. "I need you to come over tomorrow evening," I said, my voice steady. "She's coming over to make me sign the papers. I need you to be here." "I'll bring the full portfolio," he said. "And Grace, yes, I'm proud of you." I hung up. I stood up and looked in the mirror. I saw the gray hair, the wrinkles, the faded cardigan. But beneath it, I saw Silas's partner. I saw a woman who had built something from nothing. I wasn't a victim. I was the chairman of the board. And tomorrow, the shareholder meeting is coming to my kitchen. Chloe arrived at 6:00 p.m. the next day. She was brisk, efficient, and smiling that fake, tight smile. "Hi, Mom," she chirped, breezing past me. She carried a sleek leather folder. I brought us some takeout. And I have some paperwork we need to get through. Just boring administrative stuff. She set the food on the counter. Greasy Chinese takeout, knowing I had high blood pressure. Sit down, Mom, she commanded, pulling out a chair. She laid the documents on the table. This is just a standard form, she said, uncapping a pen. It allows me to pick up your prescriptions and handle your mail. Just sign here, here, and here. I looked at the papers. It was a durable power of attorney, granting her full control over my assets, my medical decisions, and my estate. I don't think I need this. Chloe, I said softly. I can pick up my own medicine. Her smile dropped. Mom, don't start. We discussed this? You're getting older. You're forgetful. Remember the water bill? I paid the water bill, I said. You think you did, she corrected. Just sign the papers. Stop being difficult. You're acting like a child. She shoved the pen toward me. I'm doing this for you, she shouted, her voice rising. Look at this place! Look at how you live! It's embarrassing! I'm trying to save you from your own incompetence. She looked at my handbag sitting on the counter, the one she hated. And for God's sake, throw that bag away! It looks like something you pulled out of a dumpster. It proves you can't make good decisions. She reached out and shoved the bag. It slid across the counter and fell to the floor, spilling its contents. That was it. The line was crossed. I didn't pick up the bag. I looked at her. Pick it up, I said. What? Pick up? I am not your maid, she screamed. Sign the damn paper. Kynock, 3 sharp raps on the front door. Chloe whipped around. Who is that? That, I said. Standing up straighter than I had in years, is the person who actually handles my paperwork. I walked to the door and opened it. Mr. Abernathy stood there, wearing a charcoal 3-piece suit, holding a briefcase that cost more than Chloe's car. He looked every bit the high-powered corporate attorney he was. Good evening. Hayes, he said deferentially. Good evening, Arthur. Please come in. Chloe stared, her mouth slightly open. Ooh, who is this? I am Arthur Abernathy, he said, his voice deep and resonant. I am Mrs. Hayes's personal counsel. Counsel? Chloe laughed nervously. My mom doesn't have a lawyer. She can't afford a lawyer. Mom, what is going on? Abernathy ignored her. He walked to the dining table, pushed Chloe's power of attorney papers aside as if they were trash, and set his briefcase down. Click, click. He opened it and pulled out a thick stack of bound documents. Ms. Hayes, Abernathy said, looking at Chloe over his spectacles. You have been urging your mother to disclose her assets. We felt it was time to oblige you. He opened the first file. Item 1. He read the residential property is located at 45 Maple Avenue. Owned outright by Grace Hayes. Estimated value of $450,000. Chloe scoffed. Yeah, I know about the house. That's all she has. Item 2. Abernathy continued, his voice rising slightly. The Hayes Commercial Trust, including 4 apartment complexes in the downtown district and the sprawling industrial park on the west side. Sole beneficiary Grace Hayes. Annual net income, a $3.2 million. Chloe's eyes went wide. She blinked, looking from the lawyer to me. What? That's impossible. Item 3. Abernathy went on relentlessly. Majority shareholder interest in Omnicorp International. The room went dead silent. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator. Chloe's face was drained of all color. She looked like she had seen a ghost. Omnicorp, she whispered. My company. Your mother, Abernathy said, closing the folder with a snap. Owns 51% of the voting stock of Omnicorp. She has held this position for 26 years. He leaned forward, his eyes boring into hers. Every paycheck you have ever earned came from her. The building you work in, she owns it. The chair you sit in, she paid for it. The promotion you were hoping for, it requires her signature. Chloe grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. Her legs seemed to give out, and she sank into the chair. Mom, she choked out. Is this real? I looked at her. I didn't see the arrogant executive anymore. I saw a terrified child who realized she had just burned down her own shelter. It is real, Chloe, I said. Your father and I built it, quietly. Honestly, we wanted to leave it to you. Not the money, the legacy. I walked over to the table and picked up the power of attorney form she had tried to force me to sign. I tore it in half. Then in half again. But you were too busy looking at my cheap clothes to see the woman wearing them. The silence in the room was heavy, suffocating. Abernathy pulled out another document. In light of recent events, specifically your attempt to defraud your mother and declare her incompetent for personal gain, Mrs. Hayes has instructed me to make some changes. He slid a paper across the table. This is a notice of revocation. You are no longer the beneficiary of the Hayes Family Trust. The assets that were destined for you will now be directed to the Silas Hayes Foundation for Underprivileged Entrepreneurs. Chloe started to cry. Mom, you can't. That's millions of dollars. It is. I agreed. Money you plan to use to buy a loft while I rotted in a state facility. And regarding your employment, Abernathy added, while Mrs. Hayes does not believe in nepotism, either for hiring or firing, she has flagged your department for a full ethical audit. Given your demonstrated lack of integrity with vulnerable family members, the board may question your suitability for leadership. Chloe gasped. My job? You're going to ruin my career. You ruined your own character, Chloe, I said softly. I'm just letting the consequences catch up to you. But I'm your daughter, she wailed. How can you do this to me? I am doing this for you, I said. Because I failed to teach you gratitude when you were young, I am teaching you now. Abernathy packed his briefcase. I suggest you leave, Ms. Hayes. You have a lot to think about. 3 days later, my doorbell rang. I checked the peephole. It was Chloe. She wasn't wearing her power suit. She was wearing jeans and a sweater. Her eyes were red and swollen. She looked tired. I opened the door. She didn't barge in. She didn't start talking about papers. She just stood there, shivering in the cold. Mom, she whispered. Her voice cracked. She fell to her knees on the porch. It wasn't theatrical. It was a collapse. I'm so sorry, she sobbed, burying her face in her hands. I'm so sorry. I was horrible. I was a monster. I stood in the doorway watching her weep. I was so scared. She choked out between sobs. I was in debt. I felt like I was drowning. I wanted to look successful like everyone else, and I blamed you for just being you. I don't care about the money anymore. I don't want to lose my mom. She looked up at me. Please, can we start over? I'll quit the job. I'll move. I don't care. Just please forgive me. I listened to her. I listened for the entitlement, for the calculation. I didn't hear it. I heard fear and regret. I stepped out onto the porch. I didn't pull her up immediately. I let her stay there for a moment, letting her feel the weight of her actions. Forgiveness is not the same as forgetting, Chloe, I said softly. I know. She wept. I will not reinstate you in the will, I said. Not today. Maybe not ever. You have to earn your own way. I don't care, she said. I don't want it. And you will never, ever speak to me with disrespect again. If you do, the door closes forever. I promise, she whispered. I reached down and took her hand. It was cold. I pulled her up. She fell into my arms, sobbing into my faded gray cardigan. The same one she had mocked. I held her. She was my daughter. I loved her. But the dynamic had changed. I was no longer the helpless old woman. I was the matriarch, and she finally knew it. In the year that followed, life changed. I didn't move into a mansion. I stayed in my bungalow. But I did make some changes. I renovated the kitchen. I hired a gardener to help with the heavy lifting so I could enjoy the roses without the baggage. I started traveling. I went to Paris, to Tokyo, to Rome, places Silas and I had dreamed of. I sent postcards to Chloe, but I didn't take her with me. She had her own work to do. Chloe kept her job at Omnicorp, but barely. She was demoted, her team reassigned. She had to work her way back up from a junior position. She sold her expensive car and moved into a smaller apartment. She visits every Sunday. She brings lemon bars now. She sits at my kitchen table, and she listens. She asks me about Silas's business strategies. She asks for advice, not money. We are rebuilding. It is slow. The trust is fragile, like a vase that has been glued back together. You can still see the cracks, but it holds water. I finally found my peace. Not because I revealed my wealth, but because I reclaimed my dignity. I stopped hiding who I was. As I sit here in my garden, watching the sun set over the empire Silas and I built, I think about the clothes we wear. We live in a world that judges a book by its cover. A world that thinks a designer label means success and a worn cardigan means failure. But I have learned that the poorest person in the room is often the one with the most expensive watch, rich in arrogance but bankrupt in kindness. And sometimes, the woman counting coupons in the checkout line is carrying a kingdom in her heart. Wealth is not measured in stock options or real estate. It is measured in how you treat the people who can do nothing for you. Greed reveals who people truly are. But respect reveals who you truly are. So, my dear, remember this? Never underestimate the quiet ones. And may you always choose dignity over approval and peace over pretending. Because in the end, love without respect is not love at all. And life is too short to let anyone treat you like a delivery mix, up when you are the one who owns the building.